Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a good day to each and everyone once again. Um, for today's videos, for today's topics, and for today's meetings, we will just continue our discussion for last meeting. If we recall, our topic for last meeting is a Fourier series. Okay, so basically we introduced that concept, no, or just we introduced that topics by basing it to some concept in which we are we are having some function in which we have to represent that function in terms of sine and cosine, sine and cosine um, terms, no, for us to be able to see what will be the characteristic of as that certain function. Okay, so um no, just a little bit recall of that one. uh uh for this videos we will continue, but still our topics is still about Fourier series, but in this case we have to extend what we have learned previously on our topics. Okay, so this would be the Fourier integral, no. So last meeting, um we will just no we we was just try to kuan to uh represent the given function in terms of sine and cosines. But in this case, okay, but take note that for our last meeting, uh, given that the function is has a period of has a certain period. Okay, it means that it has the same value at some domain, or at some value of domain, or at some value of time or x-axis. Okay, so the value of some range is equal at some certain domain. Okay, so yun. So ibig sabihin nun meron tayong period. Okay, period ng function. Okay, but in this case, no, assuming that but what will happen if we assume that the function that we are dealing will be uh has no uh a period, no? So ibig sabihin nun hindi siya periodic. Okay, or uh, it has a characteristic in which it cannot be repeated at some certain domain, no. So yun, so what will happen to our generalization, no. So for in this case, we will extend our foresight about the topics, okay, to introduce some topics na continuation ng topics natin previously, in which we are considering the Fourier integral representation of those function in which in it is not a periodic function. Okay, so yun. So basahin na lang natin to about dito sa Fourier integral. So let us proceed to our example. Okay, so for example, this rectangular wave here, sa example number 1, we have fl of x is equals to 0 if from negative L to negative 1, then 1 siya if from negative 1 to 1, and then 0 siya if from 1 to L. No, as you can see here, this function is not uh, periodic because from negative 1 to 1, no, from the value of x from negative 1 to 1, it has a value of 1. Okay, but except for that one, the value of our function is 0, no, as it being said here. Sabi niya, consider the periodic function rectangular wave f of L of x of period 2L which is greater than 2. Okay, so ibig sabihin nun, uh, it has a domain in which greater than 2. Okay, so yun. So so we have your solution. The left part of figure 280 shows the function for 2L is equals to 4, 8, 16, as well as the non-periodic function of f of x which we obtain from f of L if we let L approaches to infinity. So most probably, we have to extend this f of L of x, okay, from its periodic representation into its non-periodic representation. So for us to be able to represent that one based on this explanation here, sabi niya, we can represent that one in non-periodic function by extending the value of our f of L of x, okay, uh, to infinity, no? Kagaya ng figure dito, no? Kung makikita natin dito, from this figure na rectangular form, it has a period of 2L is equals to 4, up to 2L is equals to 8, up to 2L is equals to 16. But as it goes from 2L is but as it goes to 2L is equals to infinity, as we can see here, the value of our function is hindi na siya periodic. Okay? So as you can see here, pumunta na doon, nawala na yun dito, hindi na dito nag-a-appear yung iba niyang kasama na rectangular. So ito lang yung nag-a-appear na rectangular wave dito sa x-axis natin at saka y-axis natin sa cross section nila. So, ibig sabihin nun, it is not a periodic function. No, it is no longer a periodic function. So, what will we have to do? No, if we don't have a periodic function, we have to represent that one into other forms of integral, or other forms of Fourier series in which we call as a Fourier integral. No, sabi dito, we now explore what happens to Fourier coefficient of f of L as L increases. Since f of L is even, Bn is equals to 0 for all of n. Okay? For An, the Euler formulas, section 11.2, no, yung previous natin na formulas for a Fourier series. So, if you take the integral of a sub o, okay, kung makikita natin dito, but take note that the simplification of this function here is dito. No, naging ganito na yun siya. Itong f of x is equals to limit of f of L of x as L approaches to infinity is equals to 1 if negative 1 to 1 and 0 otherwise. Ibig sabihin nito, 0 yung function natin for all values of x except for negative 1 to 1. So, ibig sabihin hindi na siya periodic, no, as we have said. So, ito yung representation ng kanyang Fourier series, no, in which not possible. Okay? So, kung babasahin natin to, itong example na to. Okay? So, yun. Now, this would be the, basahin nyo na lang tong example na to. Itong about dito, yung paragraph para maintindihan natin kung ano yung simplification natin from Fourier series to Fourier integral. Okay? So, dito tayo sa from Fourier series to Fourier integral. Okay? We now consider any periodic function f of L of x of period 2L that can be represented by Fourier series. No? Okay? Uh, from our previous function, no, from our previous topics, we have already considered some values of function in which it is periodic, no, and then to represent it by this Fourier series. Now, what if our L is infinity, as we have said, as we have seen here dito sa example na to? Okay, so ano mangyari? So we have to extend that concept na from a Fourier series into Fourier integral to consider those function na hindi sila periodic but it has a domain of infinity, no? Or as L approaches to infinity. Now, if you have to read this one, okay, if you have to read this paragraph here, okay, so ang derivation, ito, okay, this will be the derivation of our formula for Fourier integral, no? So as we can see here, derivation lahat din siya. So we have here the final equation for our Fourier integral na a of w, no, as you can see here, as a function of w kasi our function is no longer a periodic, no, so you have to represent some variables w to find the integral or to find the Fourier integrals of a given function. Okay, so as you can see here, a of w is equals 1 over pi integrated from negative infinity to positive infinity f of v cosine of omega v dv. Now, same for our b of w. Then, after makuha natin yung a of w using this formula at saka b of w using this formula, we have to substitute that value to this equation here. Okay? Then after that, makukuha na natin yung representation ng function natin which is not periodic, okay, into Fourier integral. Okay? So yun, tingnan natin tong example na to. So example number 2, we have here, find the Fourier integral representation of our function f of x is equals to 1 if yung x natin is from negative 1 to 1. For your information, itong absolute value which is greater than 1, absolute value which is absolute value which is less than 1, ang ibig sabihin lang niyan is um, um, from negative 1 to positive 1 yung x natin. Okay? So, otherwise, our value of f of x is 0. No? As you can see here from this graph. Now, substitute the value, no? Doon sa formula natin sa kanina, dito, by substituting the value here, no? Tingnan na lang natin to kung paano natin sinubstitute yung value. Then after that, we have this value. And for our b of w, we have this 0. Then after that, isalpak natin doon sa equation natin dito sa equation number 5. Okay, yung na-calculate natin na a of w at saka b of w. So now we have this representation, Fourier integral representation of our given f of x. Okay? So yun. Okay. So, itong part na to rito, basahin nyo lang to kasi this just the characteristic of our Fourier integral. Okay? This is the sine integral, the direct lets, discontinuous factor, at saka Gibbs phenomenon. Okay, so intindihin na lang natin to siya. Ito yung graph natin for that three factors. Okay? So, ito yung sine integral, graph ng sine integral. Okay? Then, ito naman yung sa Gibbs result or Gibbs phenomenon. Okay? So, yun. So, basahin na lang natin yun sila. Okay. So, if you have any question about our last topic for this 4-year uh, series, no, you may just have to ask it to me. Okay, inshallah, by next meeting, we will proceed to our next topics. Okay. So I hope this gives you more insight about our 4-year series. If you have any question, once again, ask it to me. Okay, right before our midterm exam. Okay, so that's all. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.